Yeah, I can see. Yeah. Put them in your pocket, but now
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I'm Pastor Johnny Pence. I'll talk about that a little later. One of the core values, the four core values of the Open Table is beauty. And this is what we say about that. As children of God, we create a community that reflects the beauty of God's idea for the world, where you can be who you are, wherever you are on your faith. So today, we will express that beautiful community in words sung, spoken, prayed, and in actions of peace, love, and sharing.
Come
So let's brighten this path. So there's a story from the book in the New Testament, the book of John, and I want to read the whole story. It is, I'm going to tell you now, well, if you saw the email I sent, it's 42 verses. So here we go. But it just is such I just love every part of the story, so we're going to unpack it as soon after I read it. So here. So as Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Odd question to me, but neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. That didn't really clear it up, but after saying this, Jesus spit on the ground and made some mud with the saliva, and he put it on the man's eyes. Ew. But he did, and he told him, he said, go wash in the pool of Siloam. Now this word means sent. So the man went and washed, and he came home seeing. And his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was, and others said, no, he only looks like him. It's not really him. But he himself insisted, yes, I am him. I'm the man. I'm he. Well, how then were your eyes opened? They asked him. And he replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud, and he put it on my eyes, and he told me to go Siloam and wash, and so I went and I washed, and then I could see. Well, where is this man? They asked him. I don't know, he said. Or I kind of like, I don't know. So they brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Now the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. But others asked, well, how can a sinner then perform such signs? So they were divided. And then they turned again to the blind man. What did you say about him? It was your eyes that he opened. And the man replied, he's a prophet. So they still did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. Is this your son, they asked? Is this the one you say was born blind? Now they said that you say was born blind. How is it that now he can see? Well, we know he's our son, the parents answered, and we know that he was born blind, but how he can see now or who opened his eyes, we don't know. Ask him. He's of age, he'll speak for himself. And his parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who already had decided that anyone who acknowledged that Jesus was the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. So that's why his parents said, he's of age, ask him. So a second time they summoned the man who had been blind. Give glory to God by telling the truth, they said. We know this man is a sinner, referring to Jesus. And he replied, whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. But one thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. And then they asked him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? You can see them at this point maybe shaking him. And he answered, I told you already, you didn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Oh, do you want to be his disciples too? And then they hurled insults at him and said, you are this fellow's disciple. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but as for this fellow, we don't even know where he comes from. And the man answered, now that is remarkable. You don't know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners. He listens to the godly person who does his will. Nobody has ever heard of opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. And to this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. So Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Who is he, sir? The man asked. Tell me so that I may believe in him. And Jesus said, you have now seen him. In fact, he's the one speaking with you. And then the man said, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. And Jesus said, for judgment I've come to this world so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. And some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this and asked, What? Are we blind too? And Jesus said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin, but now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. So I read the entirety of this story today because it is so freaking awesome. I love the story. There's so much in here that we just can't hit it all today. So I'm going to tell you right up front what really struck me about the whole thing. Jesus' healing of this blind man messed up all kinds of systems that kept people in their assigned places. The story begins with a question from the followers of Jesus about a man born blind. Remember, he was past this man, and apparently someone knew him, right? And they're like, oh wait, that's that man that was born blind who's there. And so they asked Jesus, who sinned that this man was born blind? Was it him or his parents? Now, I thought, well, okay, how can a man sin before he was born? But then, anyway, but Jesus tells them that no one had sinned to cause this man to be blind since birth. And I admit, Jesus says something that then causes trouble for me when he says something to the effect, which is okay, I suppose, but when he says something to the effect that no one sinned and that God's work will be displayed in him. And then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to just keep wrestling with that because I do believe there's some God force at work here, and it includes way more than just the blindness of this man. Maybe it was even referring to the work that God was going to do with everybody involved in this story. Nonetheless, Jesus mixes some muddy spit, rubs it on the man's eyes, and tells him to go wash it off, and lo and behold, he can see. And I think here's the most important part. This action and the new status of this man just confuses everyone. His neighbors, who were part of the beginning of the story, there are kind of three movements in the story. There's him and the people, and then him and the religious leaders, and then him and Jesus. But his neighbors, who would have known him for years, likely, they knew when he was born, they knew who he was. And they say, well, now wait a minute. They're like passing in the street, you can imagine, and they say, well, isn't that the same man that we know who has been blind all of his life? And others say, no, I don't recognize him. It's someone else. And so others say, well, it does look like him. I mean, they just did not expect that man to be seeing. And the man who now can see for the first time in his entire life says, hey, I am him. I'm that man. It's me. But you're supposed to be blind. How can you see? That's how we know you. And that's where we placed you in our constructs. You, man, no longer fit the category that we put you in. Sinner, you or your parents, surely. Blind, beggar, less than. That's where we had you. Enter the righteous folks, and they interrogate the healed man. And then they questioned his parents, wanting to know who did this rule-breaking work on the Sabbath. And they too wanted to know if this was indeed the man, their son, who was born blind and now is seeing. And if it was, then how is it that he sees now? He isn't supposed to see. They knew him as a blind man. And the pearl clutching is at a fevered pitch here. And the religious folks accuse Jesus of being a sinner and trying to get the once blind man to agree. And he just says, I don't know if he's a sinner or not, but I do know that I can see now when I couldn't see before. What did he do to you? They asked the newly sighted man. And after his glorious his glorious smart-ass remark. They bully him, and they threaten him. And I can just picture they're like stomping around and cursing and say, how dare you lecture us? You were born a sinner. You are a sinner. And since our theology states that you were born blind due to someone's sin, now that you are no longer blind, what are you? We don't have a category for that. People like you are never more than sinner. Once you're healed, once you are changed, once you are truthful, once you are honest, once you are authentic, once you can stand up straight with your head high, proud even, people don't recognize you. You don't fit their categories that were constructed for people like you. They don't know what to do. You can't be that and still this. Because I don't believe that and this can exist, they would say. Even if proof is right before people's eyes, they can't see it. And John tells us the man does as Jesus instructs, washing his face in the pool, and once he is done, it is as though he has new eyes. And for the first time in his life, he can see. And when you expect this miraculous news would set off general rejoicing in the land, but as we've seen, it's not so. Quite the opposite has happened. One feature of most human communities, and not a very positive one, is that we don't adapt especially well to change. And in that community, there's a well-established protocol or a pecking order, and Jesus has just turned it on its head. Anchoring the bottom of that pecking order for all of his life has been the man blind from birth. And if you wanted someone to spin on him, he was your man. But suddenly, Jesus' miracle has changed all that. And those at the top of the religious pecking order, the Pharisees, are not too happy about it. Why? Because it is going to threaten all of that power structure. And the last moment of the story is when Jesus hears about how the man is being treated. John says they had thrown him out. And he finds him. Just the two of them. The healed man is the only one who ever sees the whole picture. He's kind of the consistent character in all the movements. So when the Christ opens your eyes, shows you your truth, changes you, you see. And others can't put you in their pigeonholes, so they often throw you out. And most of the crowd can't see, and they can't celebrate this healing miracle, nor can they envision the man as anything other than a blind beggar who has been cursed from birth. So when we look at the people around us, those we encounter every day, a good question for us is, do we see them as human children of infinite potential like the Christ always does? When we look at people who are different from us, do we assume certain things about them based on old prejudices, or do we approach each encounter open to whatever God's ready to show us? No one sinned, Jesus says. This moment is before us to give this man his dignity back and to topple this exclusive system that thinks he is less than. Every person bears the image of God. Amen. I invite you on this day to share any, before we pray together, any concerns or any joys that you just want to celebrate or to hold before our community. Maybe personal or neighborhood or world, whatever.
I'll start out with the
Yes.
joy
Lynn has a new grandson who's chill. Anyway.
I have an old friend who her husband, who's younger than I am, is in the CVICU waiting for a heart transplant. So if we could pray for them. His name is Kyle.
Kyle waiting at heart transplant.
I remember this week that a friend of mine that I had just lost touch with over the last couple of years passed away.
Linda had a friend who passed away this week. Or heard of it this week.
Yeah, my friend Denise.
We leave for Texas tomorrow. We're driving, so just pray for safe travel.
And Rocio leaving for Texas. So I have it's Edwin, you call it a concert, I suppose. It's 4 songs we're going to sing with the Cincinnati Men's Chorus at 2, and I have to be at Christ Church Cathedral downtown at 1 o'clock. So hence is why if you're kind of new with us, this is not normal. That I would wear a tie and all that. Anyway, Ed and I, we're sticky. So I'm looking forward to that. If I want to come, it's free. It is 150 at the beginning of the 150th year for the Cincinnati May Festival. And this is their celebration. There are 20-ish choruses that are singing for 20 minutes throughout the day at the cathedral. And you can just come and listen to as many as you want. And it is free. So that is the day. We started off. The men's chorus is the first one is 2 o'clock. I'm going to name some other things that are pertinent to our community today. First of all, next Sunday, the 26th, is our Out on Mission Sunday. So if you have taken the jars for change or cash or checks or whatever, well, I guess there's not a whole lot more. We ask you to bring those back, and we are going to give that money to the King's Food Pantry. Kathy Naylor is going to be sharing with us that day. No one from King's could be here, and so they're sending her the information, and she's going to share about food insecurity in our local area here anyway, and about King's specifically. Also, we are participating in or providing a meal for families that are homeless and Family Promise, and I just realized I didn't ask Justin to come up. So I went to the prayer time. We'll get there. Anyway, that is the sign-up genius is on our website. Let us know if you can bring what you can bring, and then bring that with you as well. There are also some personal care items that you'll see on the website, and you can bring those if you're able. So on April the 1st, we are participating. We have 10 spots taken up for open table for Hands Against Hunger from 9:15 to 11:30, I think, that day. Anyone who's 7 years old up can participate, and we'll be packing food for meal packets that'll be distributed to those who are feeling food insecurity. And so, anyway, there's a sign-up genius for that as well on the website, all under the Mission Together section. And so, also, I actually put an old-fashioned piece of paper back there. If you are here today and you keep thinking, I keep forgetting to do that, just put your name down for April 1st, because we have to tell them by the 24th coming up this week, or lose those spots. So we just, if you've been waiting or just thinking about it and just haven't done it, do that. So, also on April 2nd is Palm Sunday, and so we are going to actually gather here that day, not our missional communities in other locations. And we'll be here at 10:30. And during that time, we'll break into our missional communities, and anyone who's not part of a missional community, just grab a seat with someone and do some discussion and some sharing together like that as well. Easter is April 9th, so that is one of our weeks to be here in, so we'll be here as well. If you want to donate to the financial needs for Open Table, you can do do that with QR code in the back, or there's a cash box as well. Let us pray. Oh God, let something essential happen to me. Something more than interesting or entertaining or thoughtful. Oh God, let something essential happen to me. Something awesome. Something real. Speak to my condition, Lord, and change me somewhere inside where it matters. A change that will burn and tremble and heal and explode me into tears or laughter or love that throbs or screams or keeps a terrible cleansing silence and dares the dangerous deeds. Let something happen in me, which is my real self, God. Oh God, let something essential and passionate happen in me now. Strip me of my illusions of self-sufficiency, of my proud sophistications, of my inflated assumptions of knowledge, and leave me shivering as Adam or Eve before the miracle of the natural, the miracle of this earth that nurtures me as a mother and delights me as a lover, the miracle of my body that breathes and moves, hungers and digests and sees and hears, that is creased and wrinkled and sexual, shrinks in hurt and swells in pleasure, that works by the most amazing messages of what and when and how, coded and curled in every cell, and that dares to speak the confronting word. Oh God, let something essential and joyful happen in me now. Something like the blooming of hope and faith, like a grateful heart, like a surge of awareness of how precious each moment is. That now, not next time, now is the occasion to take off my shoes, to see every bush afire, to leap and whirl with neighbor, to gulp the air as sweet wine, until I'm drunk enough to dare to speak the tender word, thank you. I love you. You're beautiful. Let's live forever beginning now. And I'm a fool for the Christ's sake. Amen. I invited Justin to share his story with us today and witness. And Justin, come on up and everybody encourage him to see. Yes.
Hello.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, you're good.
I don't know how to do it.
And write everything down because I have ADHD and I forget things, so I'm pretty looking at my phone for
Did
this.
you hear it?
Wait, hold on.
Love you guys.
Stand there and look at us.
I type a lot. Ooh.
Should try and do this.
There you go.
Okay, sorry, it should be working now.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, I'm going to begin my story. I've not done this before. This is really scary to me, but I'm breaking out of my comfort zone because I don't live in fear anymore. Fear is stupid. So, I love y'all, and bear with me as I navigate this horribly typed out story. I did this last night at 12:30 at night. So this morning, I take you all on my coming out journey and recall events that I remember clearly out of my self-realization, leading up to and afterwards as I started out as a lost boy to eventually being found. Some details I left out, and I'll revisit those later in my life with you all, if we get the opportunity. Who knows, maybe I'll write a book or do a podcast down the road called The Rainbow Boy Chronicles Volume 1. So it all started out in kindergarten, when a little boy winked at me. It started, and at that point I started wearing all rainbow clothing, guys. Well, not quite. Now on to the story of me, JT. My journey started out wondering who I was and what I wanted in the world. But what I wanted versus what I got are two different things. This is kind of tough. Let's say my lack of understanding of myself and my faith was low. Sure, I attended church, but if I'm being honest, it was just because my mom and grandparents dragged me. It was boring. Baptist churches were very monotone, and Catholic churches made me uncomfortable. I'll say the donuts and juices were delicious, and the time to mingle with kids my age was great. From an early age, I battled with same-sex attraction. I would remember hearing family talking about how wrong homosexuality is, but yet at the same time, anytime I saw a cute boy, I would always get feelings that I wasn't able to process. It felt different. Does that make me a homosexual? For some reason, my spirit wanted me to keep these feelings bottled up for a very, very long time. I could never speak the truth that I always knew, that I like boys. To me, I thought that wasn't an issue. What's wrong with liking boys? Apparently a lot. My home life wasn't abusive or toxic. My family never really did a good job of diving below surface level conversations. The bottom line was my mom was afraid of my dad's temper, so my brother and I had learned to not let my father become angry about literally anything. We had to keep conversations very light and upbeat, nothing bad. He was a great provider for our family though, just not an involved father. He had his own demons and honestly never talked about religion growing up. We attended church or prayed before meals like the rest of my family. My mom was a church-going member of our family. I could never confide in my family about my truth, discuss anything more important about what's going on in my personal life, or talk about my feelings. He would occasionally help me with my schoolwork, and we would go out to dinners, movies, make a road trip to different places, go out of town to visit family and stuff. But the conversations would never go places I wanted them to go with him. He did not care. To this day, he is very much the same, a little better, more accepting. He can talk with Brian and shows interest in the LGBTQ community. That's a positive, but at the same time, you can't make up for lost time, is what I tell myself. The story sounds like, wow, JT, you have a lot of family issues. This could be, and for that, I'm very blessed to be attending therapy very soon to take a deeper dive into this. What a journey, to say the least. It's been up to this point. Living in a world where it felt like I was completely and totally invisible. The feelings I had and what I wanted to say had to be suppressed. Looking back at that kid, it makes me very, very sad. He was lonely and had only a few friends with big wings and without a sky. I think the scariest part of all of this process of being closeted was my anxiety and depression were through the roof, and I had nobody to turn to. I was walking through life blindfolded. I could never trust anyone. To me, everyone was the enemy. I wanted to die every single day. Life had no meaning. Yep, I felt this way even in early elementary school. Then in 5th grade, I signed up to be a band kid. A kid with asthma signing up for an instrument that requires you to use your lungs. This has nothing to do with my coming out story, just yet anyway. But it started to give me purpose. I was the worst clarinet player my school has ever had. And once I joined junior high, I signed up for handbells and fell in love with the class, the music, and how easy it was. After that, I signed up for orchestra and gravitated towards the cello. This instrument, I will say, changed my life and gave me confidence. I felt so damn cool playing it. Sure, it sounded like dragging your nails across a chalkboard, but it was recharging parts of my soul that were dormant. Fast forward to high school, I got better, and in college, I got even better. That's when I decided to make cello my major. But that feeling was awesome to play an instrument. My family started to be more supportive, getting more involved with me, and it felt like they heard me, not in that sense, but I was starting to feel more seen. One thing that still made me feel like I couldn't be the full Justin was that I was still not out of the closet. Fast forward, it's my senior year of high school. This is the chapter of my coming out story where I discovered who I am. I met my first boyfriend online, and we met at the library. He was super cute. My heart would race, and I made it very clear that he is never to meet my family. We would only be on the weekends and weeknights. Nobody would want me to bring a boy over, especially a gay black boy. My dad made some off-putting racial comments and homophobic comments prior to me coming out. He has not since made those comments, at least not to me. Later, this said boyfriend went to college in New York and only broke up with me over text. I felt so heartbroken that the first love of my life broke my heart. At this moment, I thought it was a game over. My first relationship failure. I'm getting there. 2 years early, I had only met the love of my life at my first job, and I did not realize this until 2 years later. He hired me to be a dish and grab Bob Evans in Toledo. He was super cute and taken at the time. Boo me! Also awkward to explain. Later down the road after the breakup, I reconnected with Brian on an online dating service. Yup, still in the closet. We met up at his house on a summer day and connected instantly. the story happens next, so buckle up. So we met at his house on a summer day and connected instantly. He was the best adventure and still is. I was jobless and didn't have a car, and he bought me my first phone so he could stay in touch, a new bike so I could visit him. He even would pick me up and walk away from my house so my parents never saw him. God, it makes me sound like I'm with a sugar daddy. That's terrible. I should have put more thought into that. Don't tell him I said that. I always told them I'm going to see my friends. We would then go to dinner, go to the zoo on weekends, and I even managed to have them sneak us away to Cedar Point for an overnight weekend. Oh, that was so fun. Safe to say we were in love, but he grew frustrated over the course of the year with me, and I don't blame him one bit. Having to constantly lie about where I was going to my parents, he wanted me to have a heart-to-heart with my family. I continued to tell them that I was going to, but I never did. Lying was my thing back in the day because I was so insecure and faithless, just young, dumb, and in love, only wanting to live on the edge of the seat and pretty much rock and roll. Never thought of going down the road. I was just too busy living in the moment. Now, let me tell you about our first song. It was You Somebody by Kings of Leon. And I did not know it would have two meanings until later on in our relationship. You know, typically in a relationship, you guys have like a song to share. The lyrics say, you know that I can do somebody, you know that I can do somebody like you. I hope it's going to make you notice someone like me. I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see. I want to be noticed for being me, for trying to love me wholeheartedly and God to love and see me. These were words that would rattle in my spirit for some time. And later my heart sank lower than it ever has. Brian texted me and said he was moving to Michigan. I was like, oh crap. I probably said some pretty bad words in that. He got promotion to being a general manager of a restaurant. And he needed to know my answer if I was going to stay down here or come to move to Michigan. As we did have some conversations during this time, I knew I had to make a decision. It had to be quick. This was over a week of pure anxiety. My heart felt like I was going to pop out of my chest as I had to choose between comfort over freedom. Weighing out all the options was very stressful, but he reassured me each step of the way that he was going to be there for me. Never in my life had I had to make a decision this big. All he had to do was say a few words out of my mouth, and I would be free. Yet they were nearly impossible, even to utter out loud, especially to families like, I'm a cellist. Actually, it was, I'm gay. That was terrifying to me. Now the day has arrived. It is a beautiful August afternoon in 2009. The best part of the day was Brian was coming to town. That's always the best day. The word, oh God, I'm terrible. This is all big day's complicated. The worst part of the day was I'm still in the closet and my window was narrowing down even further. I needed to make a decision. The decision was already made prior. I just had to act upon it. I had a few outfits and toiletries packed in my suitcase for a weekend getaway with Brian. This has been the longest weekend of my life, as we've been down living together for 14 years in September. God was very loud this day. He was very, very loud. And my spirit was being pushed to say the words through my mouth and into the ears of my family. The truth was loud and screaming could be released in the moment. I was on the train tracks and it was headed directly towards me. Maybe I shouldn't talk about trains with all the derailments happening now. All I had to do was go ask God to tell me what to do. I was never good at talking with God. It always was weird to speak with God. It still kind of is. So Brian's white truck was pulling into the driveway with his white Chevy Silverado. Hey, this could be a country song. He was pretty much my knight in white and shining armor, and I was standing by the doorway, pacing with a grenade in my hand and a cross on my heart. My mom was the first one to say, "Who is this truck in our driveway?" Oh God, I have to relive this moment again. I allowed B to approach the front door with my suitcase. I had my suitcase in my hand and I was at the door. And we were going to head to St. Joseph, Michigan for the weekend. They said, "Who is this?" My great uncle was living with us. My mom and my older brother were there. At the time, my dad was not in the house, so it was a more safer environment. At that point, I failed to come out because that would have been very dangerous. And I said, "This is my boyfriend, Ryan. We are going to Michigan for the weekend. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine, or I'll call when I make it there." The silence and the look on their face was horrific, and I still think about it to this very day. And my mom looked at me and said, "Your dad is going to be so angry when he finds out." She looked so scared, and my uncle and brother had pure little shock on their face. I mean, if you see me, he is kind of intimidating, so there's a big tent here, so. But I finally felt free, but this isn't what I wanted. I wanted a hug, love, support in that moment, but all I got was burn. On a 3-hour drive to Michigan, B was comforting me and saying, "Don't worry, it's going to be just fine." I was following the entire ride and in panic mode. I would say, what am I going to do about my college? What am I going to do? What do I do when I speak to my dad, grandparents, and my family? I had no idea what to say. I was going to a state I haven't spent much time in, to a town I've never heard of, and I'm pretty much giving up a life I had for a life of mystery. Let me just say this was by far the best decision I've ever made. I called my dad and I said, "I'm not coming back to live if I'm going to get yelled at. And we are going to need to come." And then he said, "We are going to need to talk about your college situation." At this point, the weekend turned into a week. By the middle of the week, I was falling in love with living on Lake Michigan. I felt it was a fresh beginning. I was in a new place as an openly gay man, and it was young. The world was mine to have a restart. I decided to call the college where I had money that was for my education still in place. My parents were at the time threatening to take it back if I wasn't coming back home. So I called the college, I withdrew the money, and used that money to start a life with Ryan. Things did get better. I had a heart-to-heart with my family, properly introduced him to the family. He met mine. Talking to my grandparents was tough. They are hyper-conservative Catholics, but they did come around once they saw his character many years later. It was a tough 3 years minimum. Over 6 years of living in Michigan, I found a church that was accepting of LGBTQ members, and another church that I connected with my spirit as well. I finally felt I was understanding my faith a little more, and I just had to go through the fire. The verse that sticks out in the Bible the most is Ephesians 2:18, which says, "When we trust God, we are putting our security in them, believing the promise and relying on them regardless of our circumstances." Faith is not quite the same as trust. Though trust is a natural consequence of faith. Not only was I supposed to come out, I was supposed to be saved, and I did get baptized in Michigan. And through the bold action of me coming out, I discovered happiness, friendships, freedom, and better quality of life. I would think that the song Broken Vessels, Amazing Grace was a part of me falling back in love with God. When I heard this at the new church I was invited to, called Road to Life Church, I still miss this place every now and then. I would be coming out multiple times over the 14-year period. Having to explain my orientation became so frequent. Not everyone was so loving and as accepting as I had hoped, but I feel confident in sharing that with strangers a little more than I had some family. There's still some family that I do not speak with, and I would care not to dive into my personal life with them. Having said all of this, I wouldn't change a thing. I've done so much living in that time and so much work on myself in that time. I have found a way and lived a life that I would have never thought possible. There have been some challenges being a gay man, including the recent challenge of being kicked out of a church that I had attended due to being gay. Apparently this place has a no gays allowed here policy. Didn't know God offered that. The more you know. In the end, my faith was not wavered by this church's decision to kick me out. I had already experienced discrimination in several instances, and each hurtful, but I could at least be hurt and knowing I am loved and mattered to God at this point in my life. I have had to overcome a lot of suicidal thoughts as I was close to calling life quits. This is just one of the experiences my therapist will have to hear about. This brings me to the open table, a place that accepts me and allows me to be me, a place where I feel safe enough to share part of my story. There are a lot of details I chose not to include, but with time I will share more with each of you, as they are pretty big subjects on a different day. But I would like to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to share. I hope you all find that voice inside of you that's hiding, and that one day it may find this place to speak its truth. And blessings to all of you.
Carrying a vision of creation healed and restored, we welcome all in the name of the Christ. Invited to the table where none shall go hungry, we gather as Christ's guests and friends. In Holy Communion, we are commissioned to feed as we have been fed, forgive as we have been forgiven, love as we have been loved. The open table, and I mean that with small cap, small letters, the open table that we are gathered at speaks of the shining promise of barriers broken and creation healed. In the communion meal, wine poured out and bread broken, we remember Jesus. And we remember not only the promise, but also the price that he paid for who he was, for what he did and said, and for the world's brokenness. And we taste the mystery of God's great love for us and are renewed in faith and hope. Everyone is welcome to come and receive bread and wine and juice today. I will take a piece of the bread and dip it in the cup and then just hand it to you. We'll form a line this way. If you need gluten-free, those elements are on the plate over here. If for COVID reasons or any other reason you are most comfortable not coming through the line, then just go ahead and take one of the individual cups and bread that we have packaged on that same plate. So I invite you to stand.
got ready to go home. He said that they just sent a text that the doctor dropped off her stuff.